requirement may not align to the agenda of this particular session. Maybe that's also another reason. But nevertheless, we have 15 plus. Let's get started. People will continue to join. Rambabu, please feel free to share your screen and take it away. Like I always request two things. One is Mickey, please send the instruction in the chat so that people can follow that instruction, join the Microsoft Teams channel.
Yes.
Number two, Rambabu, for you, after you finish the session, send me what you covered in this session, what you are planning to cover for the next session, so that I can send it out to the team in the Eventbrite email. Okay?
Sure.
All right, perfect. With that, I will hand over the session without further ado. Please take it away, Rambabu.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. So today we are having a second session of Kubernetes and Docker. And previous session we covered like installing the Docker and everything we have covered. What is a Docker file and all. So in today's session we will see like what is Docker Engine, what is the Docker networking, Docker Compose, and what the volumes. Okay. So coming to Docker Engine, as I already told in the previous session, like Docker Engine is made up of like three things. One is the Docker daemon, the REST API, and the Docker client. So the server is called the Docker daemon, which is it's a Docker daemon, and it creates all the images, all the containers, networks, everything. It holds everything. And in between there is a REST API where the CLI uses its commands to connect to the Docker server and maintain it. And coming to the Docker network. So mainly Docker network is having four types of network. One is bridge, the other is host, another one is overlay, and another is MAC VLAN. So mostly in all the standalone Docker hosts and everything, we use a default bridge networks. And the host networks is very rarely used. And overlay type of network is used for like using multiple containers servers, like in example in Docker Swarm. Okay, and MAC VLAN is like same like a VM machines. It is routed to the MAC addresses. So coming to the bridge networks. So bridge networks, they are most commonly used by default when we use multiple containers and using the network between the containers. Example, you have application and you have a database. So the network between application and the database containers is through the bridge networks. I'll explain you how we create bridge networks in the next slide. And the host networks, it is just a network stack which it looks like it is running in your local host machine, but everything is in the container, but only the network is routed through the host machine. So here is the bridge network. How I'll show you, we'll create and I'll show you the examples. How do we create bridge networks? Hope you can see my screen. It's visible, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
here, you can see by default these three are created, and test network which I have created right now. So default driver is bridge and the host, and null is like no network. So right now I've just created one bridge network called test network, and I'll be creating VMs. I'll be launching the VMs using this, attaching to the bridge network, and we'll show you. Okay, the other one is 0.2. Yeah, here you can see I just executed the Docker inspect command on the network. Here you can see the two IP addresses attached for the two containers. This is IPv address, and this is another IP address. Now, this is the IP address of this particular VM 172.0.2. Now, if I can ping this another VM using from the inside the container. Yeah. So this is how the bridge network is created and attached to the instances. And coming to is the host network. So host network is we need not to create anything. It is just we will execute a Nginx container, and that network is mapped to the this particular IP address, machine IP address. Example, wait. So if you see nothing is listening on port 80, now I will start a container using the host network. Now you can see. So this now the server is listening to the port 80, and this is the Nginx container running test-Nginx. So host on network is nothing but it just maps the IP to the server where the Docker containers are running. That is for the host network. And the overlay, as I told you, this type of network can only be possible while creating a Docker Swarm or joining to a Docker Swarm. So in the standalone Docker instances, we cannot create this overlay type of network. And this MAC VLAN is like creating physical addresses. Example, like you have a VMs, right? In either Oracle VirtualBox or any other VMs. There it is directly attached to the virtual machines, and it is and the network it is pointed like a separate physical network. For that purpose, we use MAC VLANs. And I cannot show example here because we need to have a separate subnet and gateway for this. We need to create separate subnet network and assign it to it. Okay, and this only host networking and MAC VLAN, they only work on Linux-based servers. They don't have support for Docker desktop or Windows. Okay, so coming to Docker Compose. So Docker, what is a Docker Compose? Docker Compose is nothing. It's like a Docker client tool, same like a Docker CLI, but it has options to attach multiple containers. We can deploy into using a single file. We can spin off all the applications. For example, suppose we have a database backend, in the middle one API and another front end like a UI. So we can spin up all these three instances together with just a single Docker Compose YAML file. That is the purpose of the main purpose of the Docker Compose. I'll tell you like what will be the examples and all. Without Compose, like we need to execute one by one container at a time. Suppose we need to start a database container one time, and the second we need to start like API containers, and third we need to start like a UI or Nginx, whatever front end containers we need to start. And we need to manually map each dependencies while starting the containers. Like maybe the username, password of the database, everything. This need to be done manually while starting up each container in a command line. With Compose, it is like we can define multiple containers applications in a single YAML file, and we can use just this. We will use only the single file for deploying or updating. Everything we use the single file. All the dependencies, everything it will be handled by itself, and it is mostly and it supports many things like with the Docker Compose, with volumes, with the Docker networking, and also like control panel software. So Universal Control Plane is like it's an enterprise control panel software where we can have our dedicated Docker registry and everything we can manage. For that purpose, that Docker Compose also supports everything. I'll explain you like how the files look like. So without Docker Compose, we need to execute each by each command line, as I told you. Now we are starting at MySQL database with the Docker run command. And then we need to attach, give like a variables to the on a WordPress. Here I'm taking like a WordPress as an example file. To the WordPress, we need to give the variables like username, password, everything. We need to give like a variables and run the file. So here we are executing two commands. One is for the database and one is for the another WordPress. So there could be a lot of mistakes and errors we can perform while doing manual things. With the Docker Compose, it's just simple file. We just define the like services with the database we define here, and another one is a WordPress we define here, and everything with one command we can spin up the both the applications. I'll show you the example also. So in the Docker Compose, there are three. It is just a three-step process. One is define your environment, the Docker file. Then you define the services in the compose file and just run a command to bring up. I will show you the steps, I believe. Okay, let me complete. So same services, volumes, networking, and here is the how the Docker Compose file is constructed. Here we list out the services like backend services. DB is like a backend service. Where we are specifying the volumes. I'll tell you like volumes in the volume section. I'll explain you more about the volumes in the volume section. Okay, and here we are specifying the environment variables. Like suppose we want to define some password to the database, and we want to define some user to the database. With these variables, we can define like what is a user, what is a password, everything we can define. And here is the front end service, and we are creating a dependency. Like this should not bring up before this content is brought up. So for that purpose, we are using a depends. There is a depend condition. So this it will verify once whether this container is existing or not, or is running or not. Then based on that, this will start spin up. That is the purpose of this depends on. And here the same, we are specifying the volumes, and here we are specifying ports. Here we are not specifying ports because within the between the Docker to Docker, it will communicate by the service name, and because they have the network established, bridge network established in between them, so we don't need to expose port. If at all we want to connect to the MySQL from other external, then probably we need to export here also, like ports. We need to mention ports. 3306, 3306. Like this, probably we need to mention if at all we want to expose the port publicly. Okay. This should. And here we are giving the variables which at all we are creating, passing to the database, MySQL database. We are passing the same further to use it for the connecting to the database, like a connection string. These variables will be updated in the WordPress connection string, and that will be using those, it will connect to the database. And Docker Compose is pretty simple in Linux. Just we need to download and copy it to the user local bin folder and just give it execute permissions, nothing more. And for Docker desktop or Mac or Windows, it comes by default. You don't need to install it separately. And here the Docker Compose commands, which I'll show you. Okay, so I have taken the same Docker Compose YAML which I showed in the example there. Okay, this is different. I'll show you. Yeah. So this is a Docker file. So I'm just spinning up docker-compose up -d. This is the command. -d is like a run in a daemon mode. If you don't use daemon mode, it will run in the screen, and whenever you close the session, the Docker everything will be terminated. So for that purpose, I'm using daemon mode. Here you can see it is creating a network. By default, it is creating a network called WordPress default volumes. I can show you Docker network. Here it has created its own network. Here you can see this is a separate different network 172.133.0.16. Earlier we had another one. Yeah. Earlier we had 172.22.0.3.16, 3/16, and with the new one we have on a separate network. So these there won't be any connection between these two containers, like which we have created, which we have attached the network. The containers with the test network will not be able to access containers with this network, with the WordPress bridge network which is created. So it's like isolation of the containers. Docker-compose. Yes. Here you can see with only one command we have spin up two containers. One is the database MySQL and one is the front end Apache. What is the port we are using? 8000. Okay. Yeah. Here is a default WordPress installation page. We just brought it up. If we can see, we can also see the Docker volumes which we bought up, which we have showed here, right? WordPress data we have attached to via www.html, and DB data via libmysql, which we have attached, and those volumes are created automatically from here. Oh, yeah. And these are the images which we downloaded for the existing this. If at all we want to down these instances, Docker compose down will bring down the services, and it will not remove any volumes. It will keep the volumes. If at all we want to update any application, like versioning of the application, redeploy the application, then we can use Docker down, and we can spin up with the latest image, Docker up. If at all we want to delete with all everything, we don't want all the volumes, we want to delete everything, just use -v. It will stop and it will remove everything. You see, it removed the network, bridge network, it removed the volumes, everything. See, the volumes are deleted. If we use -v, it will clean up everything. It's like totally, completely wiped off. Okay. That was for about the Docker compose. Next, now I'll show you like how.
Rambabu, just I would like to add on, using this Docker Compose .yml, right? Any microservice also will be able to run on Docker. So if we
Yes.
add a Docker Compose.yml to the like if you have a microservice on Spring Boot or Golang, right? We can add this to that package and use this Docker Compose build and up, and we can deploy it on Docker and that.
Docker Compose is very much, it will be it's a very useful tool. If at all you want to deploy using Docker containers, all the applications, we can manage it very easily with using Docker Compose. We can deploy, suppose we have like 5 or 6 applications, we can manage everything using a single Docker Compose file. Coming to Docker build and image tagging. So, yeah. First, I'll log into the Docker Hub. I already registered my user and Docker Hub. You can just go and create a user. It's a free account. So I'm taking a hello world example just to spin up a small image so that it won't take a huge space and pushes fast. Okay, so first of all I'm logging into Docker login. Yeah, so I have logged into the Docker. We can also, here we are entering username passwords. There will be some scenarios where where we cannot execute the username and password command line. So for that purpose, there is an option called in account settings. We can create a token. We can create tokens, and using the tokens also we can log in. You cannot share a password, but you can share the token and log in with those tokens. Okay, so now I'm just building a image. I'm just creating a tag. I'm just building an image with hello world with the version as 2. This is how normally we maintain in the applications all the Docker containers. This version it could be any either with the code build job or any Jenkins build number, whichever number which is depends on your project or depends on your feasibility, we use for the maintaining the versions. Okay, so I have built this here. If you see, there is only version 1, tag with 1. So I just build with version 2, and I'll update it to the Docker Hub. So I just pushed it to the Docker Hub. So here we got a few seconds ago, the version 2 is pushed. The only thing is we need to maintain is whenever you create a repository, it gives by default the repository location. Like here, it's my username, and the repository which I created is hello world. If I create any other repository, it will be that name, and this is the tag name is the version name. If I say, suppose I'm using 2, if I say I want latest, here you could see the latest tag. So just the tag names are what the version names which we maintain and push it. This is how we normally maintain the container images versions, and using this we just pull the images and just run the Docker command and bring up the container. This is how we maintain. And coming to the Docker storage. Docker storage, it's Docker is Docker containers. They are called like they are immune. They are immutable images because like whenever you try to modify anything in a Docker, it won't be updated to the existing one. It just try to create a new image. That is why it is called immutable. And so and the containers writable layer, they are tightly coupled to the host machine where the container is running, and it is not easy to move the data anywhere else. And writing into the storage drivers, they require a storage particular driver depend to manage the file system. And for that purpose, we are using the Docker volumes to avoid all these things. So where the Docker images are stored. This is the particular directory where Docker stores everything. All the images, every data, everything is stored in the varlib Docker file. And we have these many type of drivers: AUFS, BTRFS, device mapper, VFS, ZFS, overlay 2. Based on the different OSs level, there are different type of storage drivers are used. We can configure the storage driver in the Docker daemon. I will show you where we configure the drivers also. Yeah. Depending on our usage and the workload, we need to choose the drivers. Mainly today nowadays the most popular and very easy configuration is overlay 2. This is the driver which is preferred mostly in all the Linux distributions, and they don't require any extra configuration. So they all operate at a file level and they use memory very efficiently. But the only thing is the containers writable layer might grow a lot as the image size may increase. If at all, we store everything in the container size. And these ZFS, BTRFS device mappers, they are block level storage drivers. They perform very better with heavy workloads, write heavy workloads, and for smaller workloads and everything, and many layers or deep file systems, overlay may perform very much better. But overlay is like older version of overlay 2 is the latest one. But overlay 2 consumes more inodes, and which can lead to sometimes inode exhaustion. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So if at all we are choosing any like platform as a service in other orchestration or anything, ZFS is the better choice as we have like the SSDs and all. So for them in those scenarios, ZFS will be a good choice. And coming to the data volumes. There we are having 3 type of volumes. One is the normal volume, one is the bind mounts, and one is a TempFS, temporary file system mounts. So normal volumes are like they are persistent on disk and they are stored in the Linux file systems, and they are managed by the Docker itself, and pretty easy to handle. And bind mounts are like persistent. They are also persistent on disk, and they can be stored anywhere on the Linux machine. Example, I'll show you the examples and scenarios and where we use these type of mounts. And there are two. We use option -v and -fn mount behave in commands to mount. But -fn mount is like older system. Now mostly the most popular is -v, where it's pretty much simple. And for like -f mount, there is option to specify the Docker drivers. Suppose you want to use some local file, or you want to use some what do you call any other driver, specific driver like overlay or overlay 2. Like this, we can mention the drivers in the -f mount option. But generally, normally we prefer using volumes which are pretty easily manageable and attachable. So mostly in all the scenarios, if you see for examples also, only -v will be used a lot. So coming to the volumes part. So volumes, like as I told you, they are the most preferred mechanism for the persistent data, maintaining the persistent data, and they are very easy to back up or migrate than bind mounts. Volumes, like if at all you want to move the container from one server to another server, and it is very easy to take the backup of the volume and move it to other servers. Maintainability will be very easy, and you can manage all the volumes through the Dockerline commands. They work in both Windows and Linux as well. Like if you have Docker volume in Linux, you can take the backup and restore in Windows as well. And they can be attached to multiple containers. You can attach one volume to the one container, and you can use the same volume to another container. You can map it there and share the files. And there are many other drivers where we can use like cloud volumes or any other things. Example, if you take AWS, we are having EFS. With some of the drivers, you can even map EFS drivers to the EC2 instance and use it to the Docker volume. So with the volumes, it is pretty much easy, and handling the data, which is very easy. And yeah, and the volumes on Docker desktops, they have much higher performance because as they are local standalone things. And here, this is the commands which we used to map the volume. I'll show you. Wait, suppose Docker. Okay, already is there, so I'm removing that. Docker volume rm. You can either create a volume and attach, or you can just run this command. It will automatically create the volume. That is the option available only with the -v command. If you choose -f mount, it will not create the volume automatically. It will just throw an error. Now if it's all in use. Okay. So you can see it has automatically created the volume. Here, earlier I showed you, right? Docker, everything is stored in this particular folder, var-lib docker. Under that, you can see the volumes. You can see the my vol created here. Here it's having the data. Okay. And there is also another option called like storing in a remote through SSH. For that, we required a special plugin. Sorry, this is the plugin. I think I already installed it. Let me try. So it says it already exists, so I already installed it. Using this, you can map remote. Suppose I have a particular drive in another machine, and you want to use that as a volume to your Docker instance. So what I can do is I can just create a volume. Okay, that is a default command. This is So in another machine, if it will create this particular volume in another machine in this particular IP address. See, it has created this particular volume using this driver. UXSHFX is the driver. Using that, it has created the volume. And we also have an option for creating volumes in NFS. It's like NFS is nothing but network file share, where we can enable the NFS in one server, and we can use that particular volume and attach to your server and create Docker volumes in that. I cannot example that because I don't have an NFS server configured right now. So this is option. This option is available for creating volumes. And here comes the bind mounts. As I told you, like suppose bind mounts will be useful. Like suppose you're building any application, any other application where all the targets are copied to a separate directory. Example, I have a build location, I'm building the files, but my build artifacts gets created in a folder called target. This is just example I'm telling. And those targets need to be mapped to the app folder in a particular Docker container. So in those scenarios, we can use it. Like suppose I've created a target folder here. Okay, I want to map this to a /app in the Nginx file. So whenever I'm generating a new HTML files, for example, I am just building up my website and I want to create as HTML files that goes to the copy to the target folder. And using the target folder, I need to bring up the Nginx website using in the files in the app. Sorry. Oh, okay. Already we are using the sample, so I'll just stop it. Stop dev test. Docker rm dev test. Okay. So I've just used to map a /app for that /target folder. Now if I will exec touch test1.txt. Okay, there is no file. Okay, so I created this sample file test1.txt. Now if I am just coming out of the exit, I'm going to target. So this is created here. So what happens is, like whenever I'm building, whenever we need to deploy a new container which takes all the artifacts from this folder, in that situations, this bind mounts will be pretty much useful. And another thing is, like if at all we want only give read-only permissions to this, we can just use :ro, which will only give read-only permissions, and you cannot be edit any files from the container. And here is TMFS temporary file system. Name itself, it says like it's only temporary file systems. It only saves in the temporary base. Whenever the container is dropped, it is just cleaned up everything, and no history is maintained and no files are stored. This will be very much useful if at all you want to store any sensitive files and you don't want them to be saved or taken backup or written to the container. What happens is if you don't use temporary file system, if at all you're running the container and some critical information data is stored, and if at all somebody do a commit to the container, all the data is saved in a new image. With this temporary file system, what happens is if at all you commit or do anything also, nothing is saved. Nothing is saved in the writable layer. So for in those scenarios, this temporary file system will be used. And here is the same command we can use to mount like this. This is the command, and yeah, something I need to also explain. We were talking about all the volumes which by default managed by the Docker, like volume ls. So these are all the created by default by the Docker compose file which we have created, and they are stored in the Docker volumes. If at all we want to store them in a particular dedicated folder, like we want to say create attach an external disk and create a storage and create a folder and attach to the volume and save everything there. So for that, there is here we need to map. Only thing is we need to do some extra work in that. That is, we need to create the folders and we need to create the permissions as well, because the Docker container cannot set permissions by its own. For example, I have already created the drivers like. Okay, let me delete all these files. So I have created this MySQL and I have created this WordPress folder. And for MySQL, we need to set the permissions what MySQL will have. And for the WordPress, we need to set the permissions like what it Apache file, whatever required user permissions we need to set. If at all we don't set any permissions, the Docker will throw error and it won't be able to save any storage here. That is the reason generally people say like, let Docker manage the volumes so that it creates everything by its default and creates all the permissions by itself. If at all we want to store separately, so I've just on the MySQL it is using root, so I've created root permissions, and the WordPress it is using www data as a user, so I've created those permissions. Now here is my Docker compose file. So here I have mapped the files. You can see this is the varlib MySQL of the Docker file where all the MySQL data is stored here. So I'm mapping it to /opt MySQL in my system. So in this particular directory, all the data is stored. The same scenario is for the WordPress. So WordPress, all the files are created in var.ww.html, and I'm in my local. I want to save them to opt WordPress so that it will be easy for me to identify and maintain and take the backups regularly. So I'll spin up with this docker-compose -d. So it is not creating any volumes now. You can see it just only created the network and just created the services. Docker-compose. So these two are running now. Now if I go to those folder, earlier I just cleaned up all the data, right? So you can see it created all the files, all the data files, everything, all the MySQL files are created here. And if you go to WordPress folder, and all the content of var.ww.html is saved here. So this is the way where we can create our own custom folders and map it to the volumes of the Docker container. And another scenario is the most useful part is for the Docker Compose. Where is that? I'm just changing this file a little bit because for example, I'm showing. So what happens is we can I'm just bringing it down. Docker Compose. I'm just committing this part because I want to explain you like how to scale using Docker Compose. So if at all we map any external ports, so it won't be able to scale the image because due to the port conflict. Okay. Now we can see there are two containers running. One is the database and one is the WordPress. If at all we have any requirement and we need to scale up front-end UI applications, we need 2 or 3 more required based on the load. So what we can do is WordPress is the name which I have used in the Docker Compose file. So right now I'm just scaling up it to 2. Oh, sorry, spelling mistake. Yeah. So if you see Docker Compose, now if you see, and there are 2 Apache instances spin up. If at all you need to do manually, you need to write like a Docker full command, and you need to start multiple instances. How many? Suppose you want 10 instances, so you need to try execute 10 times, like Docker run 1, Docker run 2, like that. You need to keep on executing one by one. Here it is pretty simple. I want to have 4 instances, so it will automatically spin up another 2. And after the load, you want to reduce it. We can reduce it to 3. See, it has detached to 3. Now only 3 are running. So this is pretty much very simple and easy to maintain the Dockers using the Docker Compose. I think that's it for now. So just let me know if you have any questions or anything I can answer.
Rambabu, there is some question.
Okay.
Can anyone explain about Alpine-based images?
Okay, Alpine-based images are like pretty low capacity images, which are very used very much in the Dockers to reduce the download and upload part. If at all if you use like any Ubuntu image or full-fledged Linux image, it will go up to 500 MB or 600 MB. Whereas if you go to Alpine, it is only pretty smaller image, and it only installs the required libraries, whatever we needed for the particular container, and it will spin up with a very less space. While coming to production usage, so one thing we need to see is like what is the size of the Docker. If at all the size of the Docker image is too much, what happens is, and we have in auto scaling mode, and we have a pretty huge load now. So if you have a huge size of the Docker container image, it will take time to download and it will take time to spin up. So there will be a lot of latency. If at all we reduce this, if you maintain the less size of the Docker container images, so that latency we can cover up, and all the downloads, everything will be fast, and it also reduces the storage. So that for that purpose we use the Alpine images more if it in while in the productions and all to use it.
Thank you, Ram Babu. It was another top-notch session. I also wanted to thank the attendees for taking time to learn. Appreciate joining. I just want to make sure that we keep this attendee list consistent for next 4 sessions, so you get the best out of it. And I'm looking forward every one of you to join the remaining 4 sessions. So Ram, would you like to just give a perspective to the team that in next session, what are they going to learn?
In next session, we are planning to like installation of the Kubernetes and configuration of the Kubernetes. We are planning in the next session.
Okay, so that's good. So Docker is done now. How to manage the Docker is the next session. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Any final questions? We have 4 more minutes. If you want any final questions, please feel free to unmute and ask. Also, please make sure that next time when you are joining, you have a Testoper account. The instruction is already there, because it's not only about you guys coming and learning, right? It's also about you contributing back to the community to help others learn. And that's what the Testoper community is all about. We want to make sure we all learn together from each other. So do it both ways, right? Come and learn, and also learn to train others in the community. That's the kind request to every one of you, so that you can collaborate with other members and make the Testoper teams active. Right now, the Testoper teams is little bit active, but not much, and we want to really make it active by asking questions, sharing the job opportunities, and so on. And finally, the last point I would like to highlight is, if anybody has any mindset of a change for a job, or maybe future you wanted to change for a job, just send the resume to testoper@testoper.com. We will keep it as a in our database, and when there is a right opportunity, we can always reach out to you guys. Okay. So with that, I will give the honor back to Ram Babu and Kavita for saying a few words and close the session on time. 2 more minutes.
Ram Babu, can you just explain day-to-day scenarios, like how deployments and everything are done on Docker?
Yeah, I already told you, right? Like we just build the Dockers, and we push it to the Docker registry. Docker images.
I mean, like how applications are deployed, like what kind of requests we'll be getting from customers in that.
So normally, okay, coming to the development scenarios or production scenarios, whatever we do is we generally use like all the automated deployments. We don't do manually. So we use either Jenkins if it is an on-premise or any other cloud, or if it all like AWS code pipelines and all. So what we do is we have triggers configured in Jenkins or whatever that's GitHub or GitLab, whatever it is. So or once the developer does a code merge or any code push. So what happens is we already configure all the jobs, right, in Jenkins or whatever pipelines. So it gets automatically triggered and pushed to the registry. Here I just showed you about the Docker Hub. Like that, we have a GitLab registry, and we have ECR and GCP, Azure. They have their own registries. And in Docker, we just use the latest stack. Normally, it is preferable to use the latest stack. Whichever we build, we push it like a latest, and we just do it like a Docker Compose. If you see the Docker Compose here, we just mentioned the version, right? Image version here. We normally do is like latest. So whenever it pulls it will get always tries for the latest image, it pulls it down and pushes to brings up the application. This is for the manual process of deploying. And where else we have like deployment scripts, either written in Ansible or in the pipelines, everything which does the automatic deployment. So most of the times we don't prefer doing anything manually because doing things manually can do any any errors, human errors. To avoid those things, we always want to do things automatically.
So what kind of images do we use on regular basis? So just want to know.
Depending on the project, like if it's a node, normally we pull a node from the node and we apply our application and we push it. If it's any React and everything. So based on the application side, we just use the low size repo, whatever available.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Anything?
If possible, can you just explain how the front end, back end, like what kind of images, like taking a scenario and explain, I mean, just for 1 minute.
You know what
Yeah.
is this? We are top of the hour, Ishwant, right? Maybe what we can do is we can take this question away and then come back and address it in our next session. Would that work for you?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So let's come back next session Saturday and address some of the questions. One of the things I just want to make sure is that we keep the timing intact. If you're okay with that, with due respect, okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Sure, Ashwant. Next session, I'll definitely explain you with mapping some sample application and I'll show you.
Yeah. Also, right, Ishwant, it's a Saturday evening for Rambabu there, right? So I just wanted to let him to, with respect of time. So I'm sure that you all appreciate it. Let's get back next week, Saturday, same time, and learn more together. Right. So with that, let's close the session. You guys have a wonderful day. Rambabu, Kavita, as always, thanks again for supporting the community, helping to upskill the community. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Kader. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.